Hello, Lakers. This is Miss Sherwin speaking. Today, I'm going to be talking about Of Mice and Men and the American Dream. And so later on this week, you are going to be reading and starting to read Of Mice and Men. But Mr. Ingles and I thought it would be a good idea to give you some background knowledge. That way you are prepared for the novel and we are all on the same base for when we discuss in class. So, what is the American Dream? You are going to hear about this a lot as we read. That's going to be a major point of our discussion. If you're unfamiliar with what the American Dream is, let me fill you in. This idea of the American Dream is this concept that no matter who you are, what your gender is, race, religion, financial status, education, or where you grew up, everybody can achieve success and live the quote-unquote American Dream. And so in basic knowledge of understanding, the American Dream is success. But what we're going to be exploring over the next 2 weeks, we are going to be talking about our own American dreams at first. We'll talk about how the American Dream has changed over time. We will then discuss as we read the novel if the American Dream really is attainable for everyone, and how the American Dream is shown in Of Mice and Men. So if you can see my comic strip on the right here, it says the evolution of the American Dream from the 1800s, 1920s, and 1990s. The American Dream has definitely changed over time as shown in this little comic strip. Hopefully you can view it. If not, we'll discuss it in class as well. So let me talk about a little bit more of our history of our nation, particularly focusing on the 1920s to 1930s, which is where our book takes place. Miss Lewick from across the hall likes to categorize this time period as from glory to gutters. And so I'm going to talk about that here. So the glory of our 1920s period. This was a time for industry, innovation, leisure, and economic prosperity. So this was a time in our nation where people tended to have a little bit more money to do things like leisure activities, like going to boxing matches. We've got some flappers in the upper right-hand corner, so scandalous, showing their ankles and knees and whatnot. And then even going to the theater. This was a time for our nation to thrive with their industry and innovation, so creating things and whatnot. We really saw that boom of the economy at that point. However, it did not last long because the gutter period is the 1920 period and beyond, 1929 period and beyond. So if you're unfamiliar with the stock market crash of 1929, let me talk about it. So this was a thriving stock market in the 1920s. However, many people borrowed money from banks or took out loans that they couldn't pay back. And because of this, the market crashed, people could not pay off their debts, and banks almost ceased to function, which left 13 to 15 million Americans unemployed. And this was the beginning of the Great Depression era, which lasted 10 years from 1929 to 1939. So here are some pictures from that time period. On the left, we've got an unemployment line. So that means that we've got all these people here lining up for a job or a few jobs that may be listed for that day, seeking employment, and just kind of a crazy point of our nation's history. On the right, we actually have a picture of the Dust Bowl. So the Dust Bowl was this name given to the southern plains and the regions of the United States, which suffered dust storms during a really dry period in the 1930s, which meant that high winds and dust swept from Texas to Nebraska. Livestock were killed, crops failed, and that was more of the country side of things compared to maybe our city life where these unemployment lines did occur. Because of all these things, people left and migrated for work. And so on the left, we have a picture of a family piling all their belongings into the car, and they are on search for work. On the right, we have one of the most famous photographs from that time period called The Migrant Mother. I really recommend searching up this photo. We'll talk about it more in class as well. It's just a very telling picture about what a mother is going through at this time in America, trying to survive, trying to find work, trying to put food on her table for her children. And now here comes our author, John Steinbeck. So John Steinbeck, a very prolific American author, born in 1902, died in 1968. From California, but did move to New York to work as a manual laborer and then a journalist while writing novels. He traveled the world as a journalist, won the Nobel Prize in Literature, and his novels included Of Mice and Men, East of Eden, and Grapes of Wrath. And most of those novels were about social commentaries regarding the difficult life of rural migrant workers. So migrant workers being on that last slide of people looking for work, traveling from one place to the next, and trying to live the best that they can. So this slide here, we got John Steinbeck on the right, and this is a quote that he said, socialism never took root in America because the poor see themselves not as exploited proletariat, but as temporarily embarrassed millionaires. And so it's this idea here that John Steinbeck believes that socialism could never have taken place because people just view themselves as, oh, maybe I'm not a millionaire yet, but I have this hope and dream that I will be. And we can talk about this more in class as well. So, about the book. This week on Thursday and Friday, we are going to be starting to read Of Mice and Men. Of Mice and Men, published in 1937, is considered a short work or novella. It is 6 chapters long, a little over 100 pages, so it'll be a very quick read. It follows George and Lenny, who are 2 migrant workers trying to make a living in the midst of the Great Depression. I would say their friendship is very important in this novel. Throughout my years teaching here at Prior Lake, students seem to really love this novel because of George and Lenny, and so we obviously hope that you like it as well. Can't wait to discuss it in class. And that is that for today, Lakers. Have a good one.